Be grateful for the experience, my sister said. After her husband stole 28 months of my labor and $100,000 in wages, I built a company that destroyed his. I was 24 when my sister Madeline married Cole after trade school. I had an electrician's license but no experience or contacts. Cole owned a small electrical contracting firm. His residential projects included new construction, renovations, and panel upgrades. He had about 7 employees and too many jobs. Madeline suggested I work for him. It would benefit everyone, she said. I would learn. Cole would get reliable help. We'd be one happy family. Cole agreed, on terms. He said he couldn't pay me immediately. The company was growing and cash was tight. He promised to pay me a small amount each week for living expenses and settle up after things stabilized. 9 months, possibly 18. I believed my sister because I was stupid and young. I said, yes. The weekly wage was $250. I worked at least 48 hours a week, sometimes 58. Because I wanted to prove myself, I did his other workers' jobs, sometimes harder ones. His regular staff made $28 to $34 per hour. I made less than $6. I reassured myself it was temporary. Cole was up for it, I thought. I vowed Madeline wouldn't let her brother be duped. 9 months passed. I asked Cole about fair pay. The company was still establishing itself, he said. Cole said, give it a few more months. He said, I was learning so much, wasn't it worth something? I told Madeline. She said Cole was stressed. She advised patience. She said my experience was worth more than money. So I waited. 18 months passed. I asked again. It irritated Cole. He called me ungrateful. He said he risked me when no one else would. I could leave. But I had to start over, he said. He seemed to be helping me by not paying me. Madeline supported him. She told me I joined the family business. She advised me to think long term. She said money wasn't everything. Living in a 4-bedroom house your husband bought makes it obvious. Stayed 18 months more. Not sure why. Maybe I kept expecting change. Maybe I was afraid of starting over. Maybe I couldn't believe my sister would let this happen. Calculations were finished by month 28. Cole owed me over $104,000 at standard interest. I mentioned this during a Sunday meal at their house. I showed him numbers. Work hours. Market rate for a licensed electrician. Minus his previous payment. $107,600 and change. Cole chuckled. Really laughed. He claimed the figures were fake. He said I was an apprentice, not a journeyman. He said $250 per week was enough for a tradesman studying. I brought my license. I wasn't learning, was working. He said the license was paper. Real knowledge came from experience. I learned from him. Madeline said I ruined dinner. She said I was dramatic. She advised me to find a new job if I was unhappy. So I did. I quit the next day. My absence was texted to Cole without explanation. He called me 14 times. I remained silent. In 28 months I saved almost nothing. My $250 weekly barely covered rent and groceries. I had another thing. For 28 months, I worked in every city neighborhood. I recognized builders. I knew vendors. I knew which inspectors were strict and reasonable. Cole's job prices were known. I knew he overcharged by 12%. I worked for another contractor for 10 weeks to save money and plan. I applied for my own business license. I named it Proper Electrical Services. Name is simple and memorable. I started small with my tools and an old van. Every builder and general contractor I met at Cole was contacted. I told them I was alone. I told them my prices were fair and my work was reliable. I got shots from several. Word spread. My workload exceeded my capacity after 7 months. First I hired, then another. By month 14, I had 5 employees and an office. Despite my poverty, I built something. Genuinely mine. Cole noticed. Of course he noticed. Several of his clients had switched to me. They preferred my work and found my prices lower, not because I poached them. About 18 months after I left, he called. He said I stole his business. I used contacts from his tenure, he said. He said it was unethical. I asked if not paying his brother-in-law for 28 months of work was ethical. His call ended. Next day, Madeline called. Before I could greet her, she started talking. Mom was mad. She asked me why I couldn't let go. I was tearing the family apart over years-old events. I heard her voice rise and tighten until she stopped breathing. She then learned that I had let Cole steal from me for 28 months. I let it go while he paid his other workers fairly and gave me scraps. I was succeeding alone, which irritated her. A moment of silence. She then explained Cole's financial problems. How I got his best clients. My role in his business failure. The clients chose me, I told her. They chose my company because I did better work at a fair price. No one forced them to switch. When I told Madeline Cole had enough money to pay his other staff, she went quiet again. Not his brother-in-law. He could pay strangers $28 to $34 per hour, but only $6 for relatives. She wanted to speak, but I continued. She knew the math was simple. The call worsened quickly. Madeline said I'd become selfish. I prioritized money over family. 28 months ago, I told her she preferred her husband's lies to her brother's livelihood. She chose that every time she told me to wait. She always said experience was better than money. Anger and relief filled me as I hung up. I said what I needed to. Stop acting fine when it's not. Travis was in the office when I arrived. He looked at my face and asked if I was okay. The basic story was told. Working for family. My luck ran out. Sister supported my cheater. He nodded and said his uncle did something similar to his cousin. Promised him a landscaping company share for a few years of cheap work. 7 years later the cousin cut grass for minimum wage while the uncle bought a boat. Travis said he had. Some think family members work for free. Brennan called the next day. He wanted me to quote electrical work for a large commercial project. A new restaurant complex is being built on the east side. 3 dining areas and a shared kitchen are available. Full build-out. I reviewed the plans he sent me that night. This was my biggest chance yet. The job paid $52,000, more than I made in 7 months when I started. I promised Brennan a quote by Monday. Bid work took up my weekend. Lauren helped with financial forecasts Saturday afternoon. We reviewed every circuit, outlet, and light fixture at my kitchen table with the design spread out. As I estimated materials and work hours, Lauren entered data into her laptop. Even with my lower price, the figures worked. I could undercut Cole and still make enough money to hire a third person, upgrade some equipment, and possibly buy a second van to run 2 crews. Lauren printed the final offer sheet, which I read 3 times. It appeared strong, professional, and competitive. At 8:15 a.m., Brennan received the bid via email on Monday. That afternoon he called at 1:45. I got the job. My quote was professional and competitive, he said. He also mentioned Cole's bid. Went 12% higher with a paper price proposal. No breakdown, schedule or details. Brennan praised my complete bid. I convinced him I was in control. Recruiting Ethan the following week. He was 24 and fresh out of trade school. Reminded me of myself few years ago. He was eager to work and prove himself. He arrived at the office in clean work clothes with his license and exam scores packet for my interview. I asked about pay expectations. He said he'd take whatever I thought was fair because he was inexperienced. I told him to start at $24 per hour. His eyes widened. He asked if I was serious. I mean this seriously. I remembered working hard for nothing. Never would my staff feel that way. Mason texted me Thursday from nowhere. I heard about restaurant jobs. Congratulations. He said Cole's treatment of me was always wrong. Multiple crew members agreed, but no one dared speak up for fear of losing their jobs. I thanked him and inquired about Cole's business. Mason said things were tough. Cole snapped at employees over minor issues and bid on tasks like he was desperate. The atmosphere deteriorated. Mason reported that 3 of his clients switched contractors recently. Away from Cole, not me. Word spread that his work had declined. Jobs took longer. Estimates varied widely. One client called him 3 times to fix a panel installation. Such behavior spreads quickly in this field. Builders and contractors talk. Once caused, reputation damage is hard to repair. Cole's business declined while mine grew. The satisfaction was genuine, but it didn't replace my sister. Tuesday evening, Mom called. In the office finishing paperwork, her name appeared on my phone. She started with weather and garden chatter. Her point was made. She invited me to Sunday dinner with her family. She suggested sitting down and talking like adults. Cole was willing to discuss Madeline missing me. I asked what to talk about. Mom said we must move on. I offered to talk if Cole brought a $107,600 check with interest. Mom quieted. She said I was unreasonable. She said family trumped money. My jaw tightened. I stressed that Cole exploited my work for 28 months for money. I said Madeline made it about family when she told me to be grateful for being used. Mom said I misrepresented. She said Cole was family despite his mistakes. Working 58 hours a week for $250 made me wonder if I was still family. She didn't reply. She said she hoped I would reconsider and hung up. Next Monday the restaurant project began. Travis and Ethan arrived with the van at 6:45 a.m. I brought the plans and we walked through with the general contractor. Taking down to the studs left a clean canvas. We arranged panels and installed conduit. Travis oversaw the main dining room, Ethan the kitchen circuits. Keep an eye out and intervene as needed. The job went well. There are no wall surprises or hidden issues. Day 9 saw rough-in for the first level complete. Brennan visited Friday afternoon. He walked the site with his clipboard, reviewing our progress. He nodded at panel installation. Several connections were tried. He said he was amazed. He said we were ahead of schedule and had great quality. He offered more projects and asked if I was interested. I told him I always wanted good work. The following week Veronica called. Her name came up in the van on my way to a supply run. Did I have time for a big project? I said timeline matters. She told me about a 28-unit townhouse subdivision that needed full electrical service. Work would continue for months, she said. I wondered why she called me instead of her usual contractors. Finished with Cole, she said. He missed her last 3 project deadlines. His team was disorganized. Code violations required 4 inspections on one job. She said the hassle was too much. I promised to make her an offer by week's end. She said she'd await my reply. The days lengthened. Most days I worked 11-hour shifts, sometimes 13. It was unlike working with Cole. Each hour was mine. Every dollar I earned went to me. I was making something real with my name. Lauren contacted me one evening after I worked from 5:30 a.m. She stated her need to discuss business. Coffee shop near her office was where we met. She took out her laptop and showed me the numbers. Revenue was rising, but she worried about me. I worked too many hours, she said. She said burnout was real and I should worry about long-term progress. I should hire another electrician soon, she advised. Consider a project manager for scheduling. I promised to consider it. Her look showed she didn't trust me. Madeline texted 4 days later. I received the message while unwiring an attic. We were invited to coffee, only 2 of us. No Cole. I contemplated the message. Part of me wanted to ignore it. I was curious about her words. I responded back that I was available Saturday a.m. She responded with a thumbs up. Saturday morning I was first at the coffee shop. I had a black coffee at a window table. Madeline arrived 12 minutes late. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and a messy ponytail. She ordered a milky, sugary drink and sat across from me. Initially she just stirred her coffee and stared out the window. She said home life was tight. Cole was concerned about the business. He was drinking more and getting mad over small things. Her claim was that he was obsessed with me and my progress while he struggled. I said nothing. Just waited. I was asked how I was. I said I was busy and fine. Nodding as if expecting that response. I asked her directly if she understood my anger and departure. She replied extensively about seeing both sides. About how complicated relationships are and how business and family should not mix. I let her finish. I asked a simple question. Was Cole wrong not to pay me? She looked down at her coffee. She called it complicated. I asked about its complexity. Cole had expenses, she said. Business grew. Tight cash flow. I reminded her of her excuses from 28 months ago. She claimed I was being harsh. I said I was right. Despite my love for Madeline, I couldn't be with her until she admitted Cole's theft. Not a family dispute or misunderstanding. Theft. She cried. She said I made her choose between her husband and brother. Others at tables looked over. I spoke quietly. She had decided 28 months earlier, I said. She supported Cole's excuses when she told me to be grateful for being exploited, not her brother. I accepted her decision finally. She wiped her eyes with a napkin. It was unfair, she said. Fair compensation for my efforts was my goal. We sat silently for another minute. She got up and left. I finished my coffee and watched passers-by. I felt sad and clear. As if a muddy situation had finally been resolved. Next week I prepared the townhouse bid. I measured all 28 units' electrical needs. I calculated panel loads and wire runs. I got the best prices by pricing materials from 4 suppliers. Labor costs were fair to my crew, but I kept my total below Cole's estimate. Lauren said my numbers were good. She suggested several ways to improve cash flow by adjusting the payment schedule. My bid was submitted Friday afternoon. Veronica called me Monday morning to announce my hiring. My proposal was detailed and competitive without being too low, she said. The contract required 9 months of steady work, so I could plan ahead instead of scrambling for the next job. Lauren helped me set up a payment schedule to ensure draws at specific completion points. I applied for a small business loan at the bank the same week. With larger projects, I needed a second work van and more tools. The bank manager examined my finances and Veronica contract. He approved the loan in 4 days. I wrapped a good used van with my company logo. Ethan mentioned his trade school friend's job search during lunch. I requested she call me. That afternoon she called. After checking references, her name was on my roster, but I wanted to meet her. Our meeting was the following Tuesday at my office. She looked nervous and young, maybe 24. She said her experience was limited to school and a few residential jobs when I asked. I gave her apprentice pay with skill-based raises. Next Monday she accepted and began. My crew now included Travis, Ethan, the new apprentice, and me. We started 2 job sites simultaneously. Travis and the apprentice led one crew while I worked with Ethan. Coordination was harder than expected. I checked both sites several times a day to keep everything on schedule. I worked 11-hour days again, but this time I was building something mine. Grant called me Wednesday afternoon. My client had used Cole and me for several projects over the years. He informed me that he would now work exclusively for my company. I asked why, and he said Cole's recent work was sloppy. His last job required 3 calls to Cole to fix sub-panel installation issues. He said my guys were on time and my work was cleaner. I thanked him and added him to my client list. Next week I saw Mason at the electrical supply house. He was getting materials, and I was getting townhouse wire. He stopped me by the loading dock. He said Cole constantly blamed me for his problems at work, saying I stole his clients and ruined his reputation. Mason noted Cole's shop's toxic atmosphere. He said some crew members were looking for other jobs because Cole was always angry and punishing everyone. I apologized to Mason, but I hadn't done anything wrong. Mason acknowledged that. Everyone knew, he said. Cole visited one of my jobs 3 days later. Travis called me while I was working on the townhouse project to say someone needed me. Cole was standing next to his truck when I reached the front of the building. Unshaved, wrinkled shirt, bags under eyes, he looked rough. He attacked immediately, accusing me of stealing his employees and sabotaging his reputation. I told him I had to work again. He followed me, insisting we discuss this. I turned around. I told him I never slandered him and kept my cool. I said my work quality and pricing attracted clients. Cole confronted me. Everything I knew came from working for him, he said. Travis came over and asked if everything was okay. Cole stared at Travis and then at my crew who had stopped working to watch. He retreated. He pointed at me and said it continued. Then he drove off in his truck. I called non-emergency police from inside. I reported the confrontation. Cole's name and license plate were given. The officer said it was good to document in case he escalated. That night Brennan called. He learned about the job site incident from contractors. Word spread quickly in this industry. I said I was fine when he asked. Brennan reported Cole's erratic behavior. He said Cole was losing bids because his proposal appeared rushed and desperate. He said some contractors stopped working with Cole because his quality had dropped. I thanked Brennan for checking in, and for the heads up. Madeline called that night while I finished office paperwork. Her voice was shaky and wet from the start, like she had been crying. Cole came home from work and punched a hole in their kitchen wall, she said. Simply walked in and slammed his fist through the drywall next to the fridge. She claimed he was screaming about my ruining his life and taking everything. She tried to calm him, but he kept pacing and yelling. She said something to make me queasy. She said she was scared, not mad. Scared. No. She said he hadn't hurt her. But her tone suggested she wasn't sure he wouldn't. She should leave, I told her. Stay with Mom for a few days until Cole calmed down. She was quiet for a while before saying she didn't want to worsen things. I felt frustrated again, like I had for 28 months watching her make excuses for him. When your husband was punching holes in walls, I told her worse couldn't happen. She said she'd think about it and hung up before I could respond. The next morning, my lawyer called about routine business paperwork. I mentioned Cole visiting my job site and Madeline's wall-punching story. After quieting down, the lawyer asked if I had considered a formal demand letter for unpaid wages. I hadn't considered legal action beyond moving on and starting my own business. He said a demand letter would document the debt and start legal action. It would prove Cole owed me and refused to pay. I contemplated that for days. I didn't expect Cole to pay through a letter. The man laughed at me when I showed him the numbers, but documenting it was important. Something like proof that I wasn't crazy, ungrateful, or dramatic. Proof that he owed me $107,600. I had the lawyer write the letter. He created a professional document listing the hours worked, the licensed electrician market rate, Cole's payment, and the difference. The letter gave Cole 21 days to pay or propose a payment plan. We sent it certified mail to prove delivery. What would happen was known. Although I knew Cole would go crazy, I sent it anyway because sometimes you have to admit it happened. Cole got the letter Tuesday. So I know because he called me 2 hours later, screaming. He claimed I was destroying him. He called me a vindictive jerk who couldn't handle his chance. He said the demand letter was harassment and his lawyer would silence me. After letting him yell, I said something. I told him stealing $107,600 and treating me like a dog for 28 months destroyed our relationship. I said the letter was factual. He called me more names and hung up. Madeline texted an hour later. The long rambling message asked me to drop the legal action. It would bankrupt Cole, she said. It would ruin their lives, she said. She accused me of cruelty. I read the text 4 times before responding. My response was brief. I told her Cole had 28 months to pay me fairly but didn't. I said he was responsible for consequences. She didn't text back. Lauren invited me into her office the following week to review the monthly numbers. She smiled as she opened spreadsheets on her computer. She showed me the revenue column and explained that my business had outperformed Cole's for the 4th month in a row. We were doing well, but seeing the numbers lined up hit me. I built something bigger than Cole's in 18 months without exploiting anyone or lying to family, just fair prices and solid work. It was a long time since I felt proud. Proud like I'd shown myself my worth, not bragging. Same week, Mason texted. The message was clear. He offered Cole his 12-day notice and asked if I was hiring. I pondered that text before responding. Cole's leader was Mason. Cole's operation would suffer if he left, but I wouldn't turn down a skilled electrician because of Cole's feelings. Mason was considered for the job, but he had to understand I wouldn't get involved in Cole's departure drama. Mason said he understood and wanted to work somewhere where the boss didn't have a breakdown every day. I asked him to call me after his notice period to discuss details. Cole did not respond to the demand letter after 21 days. No call, letter, or anything. My lawyer sued for unpaid wages. He said the court process would take months. There would be discovery, depositions, and likely settlement talks before trial. Signing the paperwork, I tried not to think about my sister getting upset. I found out quickly. Mom called me 3 days after the lawsuit. She was upset like she was when her kids fought over something stupid. She stated I was dividing the family over money. Madeline was a mess and Cole was talking about losing everything. She said to drop it and move on. I inhaled and reminded her that Cole's 28-month exploitation of me broke up the family. I said Madeline tore it apart when she told me to appreciate being used. I told Mom I wouldn't pretend it didn't happen anymore. She said my stubbornness would harm me later. I told her I might, but I'd regret holding up for myself rather than letting others bully me. She hung up without saying goodbye. Madeline stopped calling after the lawsuit. After several texts in the first week, she never responded. Mom called 12 days later to say Madeline would always support her husband. She said Madeline thought I had attacked their family and tried to ruin Cole's business. I told Mom Madeline chose Cole's lies over my unpaid labor long ago. Mom said I was stubborn and family should forgive. She said nothing when I asked if Cole would pay me $107,600. She said she didn't know and asked when I'd come for dinner again. Once Madeline was ready to accept Cole's guilt, I would come. Not before. She sighed and hung up. Knowing my sister chose Cole over me hurt, but I couldn't keep denying it to keep the peace. I had to accept Madeline's decision, even though it felt like losing a family member. Calling 3 days later, Veronica described some regular builders she works with. She said she had been telling them about my company and how reliable my work was compared to local contractors. She gave me 3 numbers and names. All sought reliable electrical contractors. The first one I called that afternoon said Veronica recommended me. He needed a quote for a 6-week commercial renovation. I drove out the next morning to inspect the site and counted the numbers that night. The second builder called before I could. He said Veronica said I did fair pricing and finished on time. He requested quotes for 2 residential projects next month. After emailing me, the third builder asked about my fall shopping center remodel availability. My calendar was booked 2 months in advance and all 3 projects were quoted within 7 days. It was strange to see consistent work planned so far in advance in my schedule. A year ago I barely made $250 per week. Now I have too many jobs. The company was growing solely through quality work and fair treatment of clients, unlike Cole's management style. Cole's lawsuit was well known among contractors. When Brennan called to check on my business, I told him the lawsuit was about Cole owing me unpaid wages from when I worked for him. Brennan heard Cole was in legal trouble, so some contractors avoided him. Mason texted me a week later that Cole lost a major apartment complex contract. The client learned about the lawsuit and decided to avoid it. Mason stated that the client specifically questioned Cole's business practices and reliability. Everyone communicates in the small contractor network. When Cole was sued for unpaid wages, people wondered if he was fair to others. I didn't tell the story, but I didn't hide it. When contractors asked, I told them I worked for almost nothing for 28 months while Cole charged clients full price. Some reported past Cole's billing issues. Not much, but enough to think about. Cole's reputation was suffering due to years-old decisions that were finally catching up with him. Mason's 12-day notice period ended, and I hired him. On his first day, he looked relieved to work somewhere stable. When we upgraded commercial building panels, Mason worked quickly and cleanly. This crew experience is perfect for me. He announced during lunch that Cole's company had 2 employees. Cole had not replaced 2 guys who quit the week Mason gave notice. Mason said Cole barely survived on residential jobs like outlet installation and light fixture replacements. Cole lost larger contracts because he couldn't compete on price or reliability. Mason described the office as a morgue the last few weeks he was there, with Cole stressed and snapping at everyone over minor issues. Mason said Cole mentioned me. Yes, all the time. Cole blamed me for every client and employee he lost. Mason got tired of hearing Cole complain instead of solving his business problems. I felt bad hearing how far Cole had fallen, but I felt he deserved it because he refused to pay me fairly when he could. My lawyer requested Cole's financial records during discovery. Cole's lawyer turned over 4-year-old bank statements, client invoices, and payroll records after several weeks. My lawyer called me into his office to discuss their findings. He laid out invoices on his desk and showed me that Cole charged clients $28 to $34 per hour for my work. The invoices listed me as a licensed electrician on the projects. He then showed me Cole's payroll records, showing that he paid me $250 per week regardless of my hours. My lawyer did the math in front of me. Over 28 months, Cole billed clients over $116,000 for my work. His total payment was $26,000. Cole kept the $90,000 difference, claiming the company couldn't pay me properly. My lawyer said this strengthened our case because it showed Cole was struggling financially and otherwise. He lied about the company's situation and profited from my unpaid work. The records proved my claims of exploitation. Cole charged clients full price for a licensed electrician but paid me less than minimum wage and kept the difference. The theft was obvious, and we had proof. Cole's lawyer contacted mine 7 months after I filed the lawsuit to negotiate settlement. My lawyer called to say Cole's side had admitted the debt but couldn't pay the full amount right away. Without $107,600 in the bank, his business was struggling. Cole's lawyer wanted to discuss settlement and payment terms. My lawyer asked what I wanted to do, and I said I wanted to hear their offer but wouldn't let Cole off the hook. We planned a meeting next week. I waited at my lawyer's office for an hour of conference call conversation with Cole's lawyer. They offered $45,000 over 6 years. That insulted my lawyer, who responded with $90,000 over 30 months. Cole's lawyer said he couldn't afford those terms. They kept switching while I sat, getting frustrated. Finally, Cole's lawyer proposed $72,000 over 36 months. I considered it as my lawyer looked at me. $72,000 was less than the $107,600 owed, but more than I could expect at trial. My lawyer said going to court could result in a full judgment, but Cole's business failing would make it hard to collect. A trial would cost money and time, and I might not get more than the settlement offer. Cole could declare bankruptcy, leaving me penniless. I told my lawyer I would accept $72,000 over 36 months if Cole wrote to me about unpaid wages. I wanted more than money. I wanted him to admit his mistake. My lawyer included this in the settlement. Cole signed a document admitting he owed me compensation for 28 months of licensed electrical work he did not pay me. The settlement no longer sought every dollar. It was about forcing Cole to confess. The written admission mattered more to me than $72,000 versus $107,600. I felt better after signing the settlement. It wasn't perfect, but it resolved a long-standing issue. Cole must pay me in installments and acknowledge his debt in writing. The first payment was due 21 days. After hearing about the settlement, Madeline called me after months. Her name on my phone almost made me not answer, but I did. She yelled before I could greet her. She said I should have dropped the lawsuit and that the settlement was as bad as trial. She said I was ruining Cole's business and their lives for small money. I let her finish and asked if she thought $72,000 over 36 months would destroy Cole. She said the amount wasn't important. I refused to let go and move forward. She was still missing the point, I told her. It was never about money. Cole cheated me for 28 months and told me to be grateful. My family status was used to deny me fair pay. Madeline told me I was dramatic and that Cole made a mistake, but he shouldn't be punished forever. When I asked when she would apologize for telling me to be grateful for being exploited, she was silent. She couldn't even admit her mistake. I told Madeline that Cole's written debt admission confirmed everything I said. He charged clients full price for my work but paid me little. My settlement agreement proved I wasn't exaggerating or dramatic as she claimed. I received legal proof that Cole owed me wages. That admission proved I should leave and demand my money. Her loyalty was shown by her refusal to see that despite legal proof. Despite the evidence that Cole exploited me, she chose him when this started and still does. I told her I knew our relationship might never recover. We each made a choice. She accused me of sacrificing family for pride, and I replied that she did the same by telling me to be grateful for being stolen from. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat with my phone, sad but decisive. Madeline wouldn't change her mind, and I wouldn't deny Cole's peacekeeping actions. True self-disclosure ends some relationships. Which is fine. My business, team and clients valued my work. It was enough. 4 years. I realized proper electrical services had passed the point where most small businesses fail after that long. 18 employees were on my payroll. My leader was Travis. Ethan commanded his crew. Mason made bigger jobs run smoothly with his experience. We had 3 vans, a work truck, and an office with a receptionist who answered the phone while I was there. We were known for more than just good work. That meant treating people well. I paid everyone fairly from the start. There are no delays or promises to settle. Someone who worked 48 hours was paid properly. After finishing a job under budget, I split the savings as bonuses. The crew knew I had their back because I showed them their weekly bank balances instead of family stories. The first Cole settlement check arrived Tuesday morning. $24,000, on time, per his lawyer's payment schedule. I pondered the check's meaning. Cole wrote me a legal document admitting he owed me money and that I was right about being exploited, but the money was less important than what I could do with it. I called an office crew meeting that afternoon. People gathered, curious about what was happening. I told them the settlement payment had arrived and that I would give them half as bonuses. Travis grew quiet, and his eyes turned red. He said he'd been in this trade for 17 years and had never had a boss share money like that. He claimed that most contractors would have kept every penny and referred to it as loss recovery. I told him that we built this company together and that everyone who contributed to its success deserved to reap the benefits. Mason approached me after the meeting and mentioned that he'd seen Cole at the supply house the previous week. Cole appeared rough, tired and defeated. Mason was gathering materials for our townhouse project, and Cole was picking up a small order of basic residential supplies. Cole noticed Mason and asked how I was doing. I am not angry or confrontational, I am simply asking. Mason told him I was doing well and treating my crew properly. Cole nodded without saying anything else. He just paid for his materials and left. Mason said it appeared that Cole was beginning to understand what he had lost. Not just the clients or the money but also the opportunity to create something positive by treating others well. I saw Mom at the grocery store on Saturday morning. I was getting coffee, and she was in the produce section. She appeared surprised to see me, but not alarmed. We talked about normal things for a minute before she mentioned that Madeline and Cole were going through marriage counseling. Said the financial stress had worsened. Cole's anger issues worsened. He had punched another hole in the wall of their house. Yelled at Madeline over minor issues. She stated that Madeline was finally seeing some problems clearly. Mom's tone was cautious when she said it, as if she was unsure whether I wanted to hear about them. I asked if Madeline was okay, and Mom said yes, because she was handling it. I nodded and began walking away, but Mom touched my arm. She said she now understands why I was so hurt. She apologized for not being more supportive of me when everything started. When I looked at her, I felt a shift. Not anger, but exhaustion. We got coffee from the shop next to the grocery store. Sat at a small table near the window. Mom kept apologizing, and I finally told her I didn't want apologies. I just wanted to acknowledge that what happened was wrong, that Cole stole from me and Madeline supported him. Mom nodded and said, "I see that now." She claimed she was so focused on keeping the family together that she didn't want to see how bad Cole's treatment of me was. She admitted to making excuses for him because confronting the issue would have required her to confront the fact that Madeline married someone capable of such exploitation. I appreciated her candor. We finished our coffee, and I told her I loved her, but I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine with Madeline and Cole just to make family dinners easier. She said she understood. Brennan called me on Monday to tell me about something big. He said he wanted to discuss a partnership opportunity. We met at his office that afternoon, and he went over the details. Major commercial development project, new shopping complex with multiple buildings, complete electrical contract worth over $260,000. He stated that my company's reputation had grown to the point where I was competing for significant contracts. Cole's bids were sloppy and his reputation was mixed, so he never got the work he wanted. Brennan said he'd worked with me enough to know I was capable of handling it. He wanted to collaborate on the project, with his company doing general contracting and mine handling all electrical and profit sharing for the entire development. This was the jump I had been working towards. Commercial work, large contracts and real growth. I accepted the partnership and immediately began planning the expansion. I called Lauren and told her that we needed to restructure the business's finances to support long-term growth. I hired 2 more electricians within a week. Both are licensed and experienced. I paid them properly and assigned them to a crew that already knew how to work together. Lauren assisted me in setting up the accounting system to track the commercial projects separately. The bank provided a line of credit to cover upfront material costs. Everything moved quickly, but it was controlled growth rather than desperate expansion. I learned by watching Cole scramble and overextend. I was creating something that would last. Cole failed to make the second settlement payment. It was due on the 17th, but by the 20th, nothing had arrived. Cole's lawyer called and asked about modified payment terms. They wanted to extend the schedule and reduce the monthly amounts. My lawyer pushed back hard. The settlement was already generous in comparison to what Cole owed. The terms were clear. Cole's lawyer tried to argue about financial hardship, but my lawyer pointed out that missing payments resulted in penalties under the agreement Cole signed. 4 days later, the check arrived with an additional $650 in penalty fees. Cole was scrambling, his business was struggling, and the settlement payments were making matters worse. A part of me felt bad. Most of me remembered being told for the previous 28 months that I should be grateful for $250 per week. Madeline called me on Wednesday night. I almost didn't respond, but something made me pick up. She told me she had temporarily separated from Cole and moved in with her mother. Her voice was different, quieter, and less defensive. She said she could finally see how Cole's pride and poor decisions affected everything. He treated me badly, ran his business poorly, and dealt with stress by becoming enraged and breaking things. She claimed that the marriage counselor questioned her about Cole's behavior, which made her realize she had been making excuses for years. Not just about me, about everything. She asked if we could meet for lunch, just the 2 of us. I said yes. We met at a downtown cafe on Saturday. Madeline appeared tired but more present, as if she had been hiding behind something for years before finally stepping out. We ordered sandwiches and she began talking before the food arrived. She sincerely apologized to me, as opposed to the previous half-hearted apology. She apologized for not believing me, for choosing Cole's version of events over mine, and for telling me to be grateful when I was exploited. She admitted she was afraid to see the truth because it would mean admitting she married someone capable of treating family that way. That meant admitting that her assessment of the person with whom she had built her life was incorrect. She explained that watching Cole spiral over the last 18 months forced her to see things clearly. His outrage, his pride, and his refusal to accept responsibility. She saw how he treated me and realized he could treat her similarly when times were tough. I assured her that I would not force her to make a decision. She made her decision 28 months ago when she supported Cole instead of me. Now I was just dealing with the reality of that decision. We met for coffee again the following week, and this time, Madeline listened more than she spoke. I explained that while I could rebuild our relationship, Cole was no longer a part of my life. Not at family dinners. Not during holidays. Never. I honestly didn't know if divorce would change that. Damage went beyond their marriage. It was about her exploiting me while claiming family loyalty. Madeline nodded slowly, understanding. She wouldn't pursue reconciliation or manipulate Cole. She only wanted her brother back, whatever that was. The medical complex contract went through 4 weeks later. I had to process the numbers in the van because Lauren called me on a job site. Design, installation, and inspection of the electrical build-out cost $315,000. With milestone payments, the project lasted 9 months. Although I had to hire more people and lease more equipment, the profit margin was still high. One contract would pay more than 4 years of proper wages at Cole. I called Travis to announce our largest job ever. I removed the phone from my ear because he whooped loudly. Cole's final settlement payment arrived on time via certified mail with all legal paperwork. I paid $72,000 over 36 months, every payment, knowing it would hurt his struggling business. After depositing the check, I met with a commercial realtor that afternoon. I looked at properties for months, waiting for the right time. I found a small building near the industrial district with highway access, offices, a warehouse, and a workshop. Settlement funds paid the down payment. The purchase agreement was signed 3 weeks later. My sign replaced the previous owner's. Proper electrical services, boldly written on the front of a building I built from scratch after Cole tried to keep me small, independent, and grateful for scraps. I did a headcount for Lauren's new employee handbook in my building 4 years after texting about leaving Cole's company. The 18-person staff includes licensed electricians, apprentices, an office manager, and a purchasing coordinator. Each received a fair wage, health insurance, and retirement contributions. Travis oversaw commercial operations. Ethan chose residential. Mason managed service and repairs. Regular clients, consistent work, and a reputation for excellence and dependability. I proved you can succeed without exploiting others. That treating workers well made them work harder and stay longer. That family who watched you get duped and told you to be grateful wasn't worth sacrificing your dignity for. Just 2 residential workers kept Cole's business afloat. Madeline and I had coffee every few weeks and discussed specific topics. Mom finally admitted she should have supported me sooner.